So you're like me then. You're sweet. It's not as stupid. I think it's an Italian, primarily shellfish. They call it it's based off of but it's more we were like diced so it's and I wish I thought that was what we had. And then we it was like
I'm not saying that.
Hey, John, check your mailbox. There's two Lloydminster shirts there. For kids.
appreciate it.
They're there for you.
I thought you were going to say someone left a lunch container in there because that was me.
Well, I was thinking about it. I thought you'll find it. I know you'll go for the shirts.
This one works. Leave it. Remember that makes it on
I'd like to call City Council meeting number 1 for 2017, January 16th, to order. We'll now take a moment of silent and personal reflection. As a reminder, I'd ask all members of council who are obligated to declare a conflict of interest or pecuniary interest as per section 133 of the Lloydminster Charter regarding any item on this agenda. I will move to item number 2, additions or deletions to the agenda. Anyone have any they wish to add or delete?
Your Worship, we had the letter today that was circulated from the school division. Is that an item that's going to be added, or is it
No, it's
something
not. Not this agenda. With that, could I ask for a recommendation regarding the approval of the agenda?
So,
Councilor Dudchuk, seconded by Councilor Wagner. Any questions or comments? Before I call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 5, any business arising from the minutes? Not seeing any, we will move to item number 6, public presentations and acknowledgements. And we have 6.1, Lloydminster Economic Development Corporation. Oh, my apologies. Item 4. Okay, we did vote. And we did get it. Oh, sorry, my apologies. Okay. Move to item number 4, approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. The recommendation is that they be approved. I'm looking for direction from council.
So moved.
Councilor Buckingham, seconder. Councilor Thorson, thank you. Any discussion about those previous minutes? If not, call for a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. My apologies, I was moving along on the agenda. I fixed it. Item 5, business arising, none stated. Move to 6. Public presentations by Lloydminster Economic Development Corporation. So I'll ask for that presentation to come forward at this time, please.
Thank you. At this time, Worship and Council, we've made a submission, and I hope you've all had an opportunity to review. I'd simply like to state from the board and the staff team at LEDC the appreciation for the opportunity to do so, and make myself available for any further questions you may have.
Is there any questions?
I can't remember if it's in your board, but, pardon me, so it's a little bad in here, but accountability, and how do you see it being built into the plan that you have, and perhaps just maybe speak to what you did for accountability historically, and what that might look like going forward.
Well, in the past, my accountability as a staff team has of course been to the board of directors, and we've had some sporadic, interactions, some information sessions and such with city council and some senior administration. We have as well participated in the city's annual reports the last 2 or perhaps 3 calendar years. And our financial statements have always, of course, been audited by the city's auditor and consolidated into the city statements. As far as the plan outlined here, there would be a high level, probably a lot more integration with even city's administration, certainly with council, largely in the development of what we've termed that master plan to me, and we feel that a very crucial point to setting out what those benchmarks and activities in the long term are, so that then there is a target or something to be held accountable to. At this point, from a purely economic development standpoint, there's not a lot in the city's current strategic plan that really speaks directly to our function, and so we'll build that out with the partnership or the input from the existing council.
Just to follow up, Your Worship, did you ever receive any feedback over the last few years from the city on good direction, change direction, we like this, we don't like that at all, or through either the planning process or any other direction?
No, not directly. I had myself one-off conversations with different people. I know I had with the city manager Carol, with previous director of strategy Sharon Herbis, and in fact one comment I can refer to that director Herbis had made was actually expressing her happiness and how well done our, I guess it would have been 2016 plan had been completed. So nothing saying offline or not aligned with the city's overarching directions.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for the board? Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, Board, for being here today. I'm not sure where this fits into the presentation side of our council meeting. We've been through this about 3 different times. I think there's 2 parts to this issue, and I think it's a situation where council's been elected to look after the affairs of the city. And if there's a portion of anything we do in the city that we're not happy about, or things should be changed, we should be saying something about it. And I don't know if we've done that. I think we've gone around in circles on this issue. And I think that first and foremost, that economic development is very important to our community and always has been. But I'd like to add the word tourism. Economic development tourism, to me, until somebody shows me differently, I know in the dictionary it might say something different. But at the end of the day, tourism is part of our economy, just like everything else we do here. And the reason we're stumbling around with this, in my mind, is because of financial cost. But we haven't dealt with the budget as a whole yet, and we're still over budget by $1 million or whatever the number is, and we're trying to make individual decisions on departments. I think we have to complete the process of going through our budget and all items of our budget and making our final decision, how much we can spend. And then we can deal, and if it means some cutting back in this department or that department, then that's when we should be doing it. I did read your material again, Ward, and I'm sure there's lots of pros and cons. The one thing that I have trouble with, and you know this and I told you, is I don't see why we're renting someone else's building when we got 20,000 or 10,000 square feet of empty space. That doesn't make any sense to me, but economic development does. So, for whatever my little speech is worth here, you know, I just don't know what we're trying to do here later today in this meeting until we deal with the budget as a whole. So, thank you.
Thank you, Council Baker. Any other comments? Thanks, Ward, for bringing back some great information. Certainly, you've indicated financially that there's some options for City Council. We appreciate that very much. The discussions that we will be having and the information presented. So, with that, thank you very much for your presentation. We will be chatting with you real soon. The next item up is public hearing scheduled for 2 p.m. We'll just move forward to item number 8 on the agenda, which is new business and department reports and bylaws. 8.1 is legislative services with no items that I'm aware of. So we'll move to 8.2, community services. Director Stank.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just told not to move the mics, but can you guys hear? That's good. Thank you, Your Worship, fellow council. Today I got 2 agenda items. The first is our family and community support services grant distribution for the year of 2017. FCSS, Family and Community Support Services, receives funding from the province of Alberta on an 80%, 20% split. So the province provides funding to municipalities. Provides funding to municipalities to support city-run programs and nonprofit organizations that offer preventative social services to the community. Our funding is based on an Alberta population only. It's not based on our Saskatchewan population, but the money is utilized throughout our entire community. So organizations that are based out of Saskatchewan do have opportunity to apply for this grant funding and utilize it for their programs that we offer. Every year in September, November timeframe, the City Community Service Department, FCSS group, put out a call for applications for programs that fit the FCSS regulations and their FCSS grant act. And those applications come in, and all those applications are reviewed by a committee of representatives from the community. I think there's 8 representatives from the community, including city staff members and council. They go through the application list and divvy out the money that has been allocated to us by the province, 80% plus the 20% we have budgeted for within the 2017 budget process. So this administration report is to get council's approval to provide funding to the organizations. I'm not going to read through it all. I'll let whoever's going to make the recommendation will have to read through it on an individual basis, but we're putting out approximately $465,885 that were provided by the community. The other $116,396 is the city's contribution, which will be attributed to employee salaries as well as programs being run by the city. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Director. I look to council for a motion, or I guess a recommendation. That's what you're looking for. Councilor Dorsey? Oh, would you have a question?
Yeah.
Okay, certainly.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question was just surrounding, and maybe this was already answered and I missed it somewhere in the package, but I was wondering, because it's an 80-20, do they tell us what the 80 is and then we just have to provide the other 20%, or do we have to raise 20 and they provide the other 80?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through Councillor Thornton, yes, they tell us what the 80% is. We don't dictate that. And then in order to get that full 80%, we have to match 20% of that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I'll ask for a recommendation from council. Make a recommendation. Councillor Buckingham.
The council approved the 2017 Family and Community Support Services Grant Program allocation of $420,000 as follows. A, Big Brothers Big Sisters in-school mentoring at $40,000. Big Brothers Big Sisters Summer Adventure Program at $10,000. Catholic Social Services Seniors Connections at $40,000. Libby Young Community Education Program at $3,000. Lloydminster Area Brain Injury Society Information and Awareness Program at $3,000. Lloydminster Area Drug Strategy Lloydminster Youth Council at $5,000. Lloydminster Area Drug Strategy Simple Connections Stronger Families Program at $7,500. Lloydminster Association for Community Living Inclusive Community Initiative at $4,200. Lloydminster Animal Home Society Family Violence Prevention Program at $20,000. Lloydminster Native Friendship Center Engaging Our People at $25,000. Lloydminster Sexual Assault Information Center Sexual Assault Education Program at $50,000. Lloydminster Community Youth Center Outreach Program at $50,000. Midwest Family Connections First Steps Program at $50,000. Midwest Family Connections National Child Day Celebration at $3,210. Midwest Family Connections Maternal Mental Health Initiative at $5,590. Midwest Food Resource Program for Promotion and Marketing at $3,000. The Parkinson Society Parkinson Support Group at $1,000. Salvation Army Red Cap Anger Management Program at $2,500. The Olive Tree Outreach Worker Program at $50,000. The Walking Through Grief Society Support Group at $11,000. And the FCSS Advisory Committee Special Projects, $36,000 to be set aside for a call for applications in early 2017.
Could I have a seconder for that recommendation? Councillor Thorson. Any further discussion, debate, questions? If not, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Back to Director Stang, 8.2.2.
Thank you, Your Worship. Community Services is looking for council to recommend changes to our administration fees to field houses and rental rates within our recreational center division. Every year the municipality, or every year the city and community services looks at our administration rates and our costs for providing services to the community, and we evaluate our rates and look at increasing them to help with cost recovery at all our facilities. This year we're looking for a minimal increase in our admission rates to the various facilities. Service Sport Center admission fees increase of 6%. Our Wild Cane Aquatic Center admission fee potential at 4% increase in admission fees. Outdoor pool admission fees an increase of 6%. Lloydminster Cultural and Science Center admission fee increase of an average 3%. Averaging out all 10 punch passes will be charged to reflect 10 passes for the price of 9. Service Sports Center field house rates to increase an average of 2%. All increases are are averaging at about 25 cents per admission, with the exception of family passes, which increases by $1. All the proposed rates include a 5% GST. Within our 2017 budget, these revenue increases were accounted for within the budget that was presented, and administration is looking for council's approval to increase the rates accordingly.
Thank you, Director. Any questions? Just on that information, Councilor Torsten.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question mostly surrounds, and maybe this will be a recurring theme or maybe not through our time here in council, but I was just curious, what's the logic behind the communities that are picked as far as comparison? I just want to make sure we're not cherry picking low ones to show, or high ones that are showing that we're low by comparison. And I'm trusting in good faith that we wouldn't do that, but just that we have kind of consistent way of doing it.
Thank you, Your Worship, through Councilor Torsten. To be honest with you, it's very difficult to find municipalities that have the exact same facility that provides the exact same services. So what our community services staff do is look for facilities that provide similar services, that have similar sizes of communities. I know we have some smaller towns, Unity's Avenue was identified at some of the pool rates, but they have new pools and they have the pressure rates. So they kind of look at what makes the most sense when it comes to a comparable and use that. On top of that, we look at what our cost increases have been, our cost of living increase, cost of utilities, cost of maintenance and everything else, and that gets factored into the overall increase that we're looking to recommend.
Thank you. One of the comments I just had on that is when I looked at this and I kind of thought, hey, I should look and maybe do some of my own comparison. I thought it was good logic based on, especially for the fitness facilities, using communities that are same or similar size type of thing. It makes a lot of sense to me, and a lot of the ones that I was going to look at ended up being on here anyways. So,
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Councilor Buckingham.
Your Worship, through the Director, we pretty much were looking at pretty much increasing almost all of our recreational facility entry fees here. In saying that, had some comments from people in the public about the fact that we're missing our arenas. Is there direction there that we may expect something different there this year, or are the rates staying static for this year?
Yeah, I'll direct that to Councilor Kiefer.
Director Kiefer.
Sorry.
It's all good.
Through the chair to Councilor Buckingham, we have not done the arenas yet. Our general manager of Parks and Arenas is working with the general manager of in Community Services. Because we each have facilities, they're consulting with minor hockey to see where they are and check the facilities, and you'll see arena rates coming very soon. As we need to get that done fairly quick because minor hockey registers in May, so you'll see that coming forward fairly quick.
Historically, those have come in at around the April timeframe. Good, thank you for the increase.
Councilor Torsten.
Thank you, Your Worship. My other question was just surrounding, it was my understanding during the last, or with the last council that was in before, there was a study that was being done on our facilities. Was that study completed and report done prior to us making all these new fees and recommendations?
Yes, Councilor Jordanson, we do have that in final draft, and that is in our possession, and we'll be providing that to council as information in the future, short future. That was just finalized in late 2016, so we'll be providing that fairly quickly.
Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Your Worship. One thing we have to keep in mind is January 1st, we have a new cost added to the operation of all our facilities. It's called the, I don't know what you call it, energy tax, carbon tax. And how that relates back to our facilities and what it would cost us. But I think our best calculation here is $29,000 recovery. I don't know what we'd spend, but I don't think there'd be much left. And a buck of gigajoule for natural gas and road gas, whatever it is, 4.5 cents, I forget the number. So I think most of that money is gonna get chewed up, and I'm not asking for a report. I mean, it's what it is. So we have to remember that that's a brand new cost that isn't gonna give us any benefit. That's just been added to all these facilities, including this rooms right here. So we gotta keep that in mind. Thanks.
Your worship, if I might, through the Councilor Baker. We knew that was gonna happen within our facilities, all our buildings in operations and everywhere. And we have allowed for that in the budget document for an increase for the carbon tax. So that number is in already.
Yeah, we have an increased cost or an expense in our operations to cover the carbon tax. This is, administration's is an increase to our revenue, which we had budgeted for.
You built that into every facility?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Then I'm wrong. Thank you.
Excellent. Director Say, when was the last time we had an increase for?
That's a good question. We typically, I'd have to look back on these exact facilities, but we generally do look at them on a yearly basis every year.
Okay. And I think that, with the percentage, thank you, with the percentage of, we see 6% seems like a high number, but I think when I see that the average is 25 cents, I think that brings it into a perspective into the rates that we're looking at 25 cents the user per use of the facility. I don't think that's outrageous. I know it's like everything, no one likes an increase, but I think that some of the discussions we've talked about, there's going to be added costs which have been budgeted for, but at the end of the day, the user paid for those facilities is where they were designed for. So it's well noted. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Well, I'll look to council for a recommendation. We have 2 recommendations that we can choose from. I'll look to council for someone to move a recommendation. Councilor Monroe.
That council approve the recreation center's admission fees and field house rates presented to be effective March 1st, 2017.
Could I have a second? Councilor Diachuk. Any further questions, concerns, comments? Otherwise, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We are just approaching the 2 o'clock hour, so we have moved back on the agenda to agenda item number 7, and the opening of public hearings for bylaws. First one up is a public hearing for bylaw 35-2016, the repeal of the bylaw 30-2014. So Mayor Albers, declare the public hearing open at 1:56 p.m. All discussions of council members, city staff, and delegation shall be directed to the chairperson. I, Mayor Albers, would like to note that during the public hearing, we ask that you respect the views of everyone here and allow each person their time to speak without interruption. Each person wishing to speak has up to 5 minutes to make a presentation to council. When you are finished speaking, please remain at the front as council may wish to ask you questions. Any questions brought forward by the public which are not able to be addressed during this meeting will be done so at the next council meeting. I would at this time ask the city clerk to confirm whether or not this public hearing has been advertised and notice has been provided in accordance with the applicable legislation.
I confirm that this public hearing has been advertised and notice has been provided in accordance with the applicable legislation. This public hearing was advertised in the Meridian Booster on January 6th and the Lloydminster Source on January 10th.
I would ask the city clerk to summarize the purpose of this hearing.
The purpose of this public hearing is for bylaw 35-2016, being a bylaw to repeal bylaw 30-2014, debenture for wastewater preliminary design.
I will now call upon anyone wishing to speak on the proposed bylaw. Please state your name for the record and whether you are in support or opposed to the proposed bylaw. Please note that each party wishing to speak will only have one opportunity to do so. Council members may ask presenters questions for the purpose of clarifying the speaker's comments. Council will not debate this matter during this hearing. The decision regarding whether or not to grant the bylaw further readings will be dealt with following the public hearing. I will now ask if anyone else wishes to speak on the proposed bylaw who have not yet had the opportunity to do so. As outlined above, when you're finished speaking, please remain at the front of the room as council may wish to ask you questions. I have seen no one approach the mic to speak to this bylaw, so at this time, I will declare the public hearing closed at 1:57 p.m. Next item on the agenda is the public hearing regarding bylaw 37-2016, road closure of 49th Avenue. I, Mayor Albers, declare the public hearing open at 1:57 p.m. All discussions of council members, city staff, and delegations shall be directed to the chairperson. I, Mayor Albers, would like to note that during a public hearing, we ask that you respect the views of everyone here and allow each person their time to speak without interruption. Each person wishing to speak has up to 5 minutes to make a presentation to council. When you have finished speaking, please remain at the front as council may wish to ask you questions. Any questions brought forward by the public, which are not able to be addressed during this meeting, will be done so at the next council meeting. I would at this time ask the city clerk to confirm whether or not the public hearing has been advertised and notice has been provided in accordance with the applicable legislation.
I confirm that this public hearing has been advertised and notice has been provided in accordance with the applicable legislation. This public hearing was advertised in Lloydminster Source on January 5th and the Meridian Booster on January 11th.
I would ask the city clerk to summarize the purpose of this hearing.
The purpose of this public hearing is for bylaw 37-2016, being a bylaw to close a portion of a public roadway.
I will now call upon anyone wishing to speak on the proposed bylaw. Please state your name for the record and whether you are in support or opposed to the proposed bylaw. Please note that each party wishing to speak will have only one opportunity to do so. Council members may ask presenters questions for the purpose of clarifying the speaker's comments. Council will not debate this matter during the hearing. The decision regarding whether or not to grant the bylaw further readings will be dealt with following the public hearing. I will now ask if anyone wishes to speak on the proposed bylaw who have not yet had the opportunity to do so. As outlined above, when you are finished speaking, please remain at the front of the room as council may wish to ask you questions. Seeing no one come forward to speak to this bylaw, I declare the public hearing closed at 2 p.m.
Your worship, just looking at the actual bylaw repeal that's in our packages, I would assume that it's going to be changed, that everything is listed as 2016 in the bylaw repeal in our packages. Is that?
So we have, it's bylaw 35-2016 is to repeal
Yes.
bylaw 2014.
Of course, in the underlying comments and within the bylaw, it's public hearing held at this day, 2016. I just wondered if that was something that we needed to change ahead of time, or okay.
Thank you for the inquiry. All right, with that, bylaws will move back to the agenda. And I can, oh, yes, certainly. So we move to 7.2, second and third readings of the bylaws. So I will look to council for a recommendation on 7.2.1. Councilor Dodge.
Move that bylaw 35-2016 be given second reading.
Do I need a second for that? Yes, second, please. Councilor Thorson. Any discussion or questions? If not, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving to the second portion. Looking for a further recommendation. Third reading.
I'll recommend that bylaw 35-2016 be read at third
seconder for that. Councilor Dychuk, any questions, comments before I call for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving to 7.2.2, bylaw 37-2016. Councilor Creighton,
That bylaw 37-2016 be given third and final reading.
second reading.
Second reading, sorry.
Second reading. Seconder for that motion? Councilor Thompson. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We'll look to the motion for third reading.
37-216 be given third and final reading.
Seconder? Councilor Monroe. Any discussion or questions? All in favor? Carried. That moves us through the bylaws. Moving back to the agenda, item 8.3, engineering. I believe there's no items showing. 8.4 is operations, and no items to be presented there. Moving to 8.5, strategy and partnerships. Director.
Thank you, Your Worship. What we have here today is opportunities for economic development. During the December 12th council meeting, council asked us to come back with additional information as well as some other options to look at. What we have presented here is 3 options. Option number 1, which consists of the original discussion, which was the dissolution of LEDC in its current format as an arm's length organization, bringing 1 economic development officer in-house as an employee of the city of Lloydminster. Based on the revised timelines, we're projecting that out to March 1st, which would allow that time frame for the repealing of the 2 bylaws which are required, as well as notice period and the transition of knowledge to the incumbent EDO for that position. The revisions to that, based on March 1st projection, now have the savings set at $394,000, not the original estimate of $543,000. The second option would be the retention of LEDC as an arm's length organization. It would stay similar to its current format. Their funding ask would be reduced to $250,000. Upon council's approval, we have that set at January 30th, just to be in line with the 2017 budget, so that projection would be for the full fiscal year, say for January. It would be incumbent on the CEO of Economic Development Corporation to then produce a budget and business plan for the board to approve. The third option, similar to the first option, we have as an effective date of March the 1st, again allowing that time for the repeal process of the bylaws and the knowledge transfer. Several council members inquired about bringing over the existing staff, which option 3 takes into account. So this would be the dissolution of LEDC as an arm's length organization, bringing it to an in-house function, retaining the 3 current full-time employees that are with the arm's length organization. Again, with an effective date of March 1st, 2017, that represents, based on their original budget ask, a savings of $313,885,000. Further to that, there was a number of questions about our lease space. So LEDC has entered into this lease agreement. Currently, if you looked at the term remaining on the lease, that equals $66,690. While the lease was established through an arm's length organization, the city has no signing authority on that. So if LEDC were to be dissolved, there is a requirement within the lease, and if I look here, it would be under section O1, which requires a 12-month plus 3-week payment. That works out to $34,935. Again, the liability is not on the city, as we did not enter into that lease agreement, and LEDC is an arm's length organization. So that remittance of payment for the outstanding lease would be for LEDC to handle. Now, currently, they do have holdings outside of their peripheral equipment, desks and computers and things of that nature. Within their bank accounts, they currently have $238,000. Based on that fund, they would have ample money to pay the termination of the lease and be in good legal standing with their landlord. And then those finances would shift back to the city as that was provided through a grant. At some point, we're not sure when those monies were accumulated. So again, we've gone through some of the detail that was first presented about how economic development moves in-house, how we envision that through the steering committee, and how it works from a community connection standpoint. There was a number of questions about the metrics and how to gauge the success of the economic development function. So what we've done is put together a quick snapshot of how that's actually monitored and adhered to. Just quickly, there's a number of contracts made with firms interested in locating, so either a memorandum of understanding or a letter of understanding. A number of firms have received assistance from the program, like type of assistance, percentage of leverage, so that's non-governmental funding that they have received, or non-municipal grant funding that they've received through the year. Number percentage of responses to advertising and marketing initiatives, percentage of population increase in skilled and technical labor markets, and average wage of jobs created locating firms receive assistance. Further to that, there's also another metric that you can look at, which is how many people have located elsewhere after receiving assistance from economic development. Again, the question came up about performance monitoring, and what we found through Alberta Economic Development is public accountability through transparent reporting practices and financial successes, greater alignment with council's vision, results used to improve performance, results used to adjust priorities and form local regional businesses, greater identification of return on investment, and assisting with human resource management, which ties into population increases. So when we look at a lot of that information, that's how we would track, monitor, and gauge all the successes. We do have several options here for council. The recommendation number one would be the council approve option one of the City of Lloydminster Economic Development Strategy, which is the dissolution of the Lloydminster Economic Development Corporation, LEDC, and moving the function in-house with one economic development officer. Number two, that council approve option two of the City of Lloydminster Economic Development Strategy, which is the retention of the Lloydminster Economic Development Corporation, LEDC, at a reduced funding of $250,000. Or number three, that council approve option three of the City of Lloydminster Economic Development Strategy, which is the dissolution of the Lloydminster Economic Development Corporation, LEDC, as an arm's-length organization, and bring 3 LEDC team members in-house to provide economic development as team members of the City of Lloydminster. Or finally, number four, that council instruct administration based on their recommendation to return with a fourth option at the January 30th, 2017 regular council meeting. Your worship.
Thank you, Director. Any questions? Councilor Moore.
So sorry, I'm just doing calculations on option number 3 here. So we would be over budget by $80,115, correct?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Councilor Monroe. That is correct. We would be finding $80,000. However,
they're bringing over funds though with them, correct?
that's correct.
In the surplus of 80,000. So we would actually not.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. And then we would still have overseeing of everything.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Councilor Torres.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick, could you just fire off option A, B, C, what the total ask is out of our budget? Because we've got it in kind of reductions. I just want to make sure that we've got everything in a row.
Yeah, so option one would represent $394,000 savings to the budget. So there is then...
From what we have, sorry, 394 savings
from their original ask of 543.
Okay. Okay, so that's 293. Okay.
Option two, which is the retention with reduced funding, is $250,000. So you're looking at a $343,000 difference.
Okay. Yeah, I think because one went one way and showed me the total amount, and the other way was showing you what the reduction was. It was just making sure I got this all clear.
Yeah, you know.
And then C was a total cost of...
the total cost of option three is $229,115. We've already budgeted $149,000, which leaves $80,115 in the differential. And it's important to remember that currently there is nothing budgeted for economic development outside of the 149, which is budgeted as an in-house function.
Right. So just a quick, one other question. So do we still have to go through the whole process as far as posting these positions and acquiring new people to do, well, not necessarily new people, but still posting it and having a competitive process the same as you would always have for any hire in the city? Or are we just assuming kind of a roll-up like you would have in a company?
Thank your worship. Through to Councillor Torson. No, we've had that discussion. We're able to bring those 3 employees and just, like you say, as a rollover.
Sorry, she was
Okay,
Sorry.
Councilor Rowe.
Can you just tell me what the surplus is that they're bringing with them? I know it was 200 and whatever minus the 36,000 for the, because it's 36,000 mile, right?
Correct. They have 233,000. So the approximate rollover, taking into account some additional spends that would have to happen in 2017, will be approximately 180,000.
Can that be allocated anywhere, or that has to go right back to economic development?
As far as I'm aware, and I'd have to check with our Director of Business Services, I believe it can be allocated anyway.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Worship. First off, I want to commend you on the report that you brought forward, the metrics. I think certainly there's a lot more detail, there's a clearer vision than what we started with, and I think that kudos to you and the work you've done. I think this is a much better set of details, much more information around what a plan would look like, and commendations to you for doing that. The other part, I guess, is just very comments about the money being brought forward. I guess I would only caution is that perhaps there are initiatives that are underway where some of those dollars may need to be hung on to or already need to be part of an ongoing strategy or whatever. I certainly just want to comment, I like option 3. Certainly I know that you've heard my comments about it. I think you know that if you want things to change, you ask, you tell, you provide direction, and working with people, you see that they will move forward. And I think even the fact that the quality of reports information you provide along the way has really come forward a long way. And I certainly value working as a volunteer board member with LABC and people there. And I think there's a lot of investment in those people in terms of the growth of knowledge in the community and the work that they have done. I think using their knowledge that they have along with the metrics you brought forward would certainly would be a lot stronger than looking at a model where you have one person who's new coming in. So I guess I'm saying option 3 for me is the one that really ticks all the boxes.
Councilor Badger. Councilor Torson.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide some more comment on this, and I just want to say that I hope it's not too short-sighted in that the current format, for what it is, as far as I can see, works. And now we're talking about potentially changing it over less than $100,000 difference between the 2 options, which, in the grand scheme of things, the net effect to one individual's property taxes is going to be next to nothing. So is it short-sighted to roll it up and put it under the city's arm rather than having the format that it's only been in for the last 5 or 6 years, because 5 or 6 years ago it was decided that it was a better format to have it, as an arm's length operation. So it's just something I wanted to keep in mind, that $100,000 in the grand scheme of things is not a huge number for what we're talking about.
Yeah, I recognize that, Councilor Torson, but if we save 100,000 here and another 100,000 there, and we do that every step of the way, we suddenly come up with $1 million, which is a bit. I think in part the issue you raise is one that certainly was a consideration when LABC was initially formed, where there was sort of a sense, if you like, that it might be easier for new businesses to discreetly talk to LABC as opposed to going to City Hall. And for whatever the reason was, and there seemed to be that concern that if I went to City Hall, it was too public, whereas if I went to an office that was, somewhere located in the community, there was more discretion for me, and people didn't have to know my business. But certainly, there are other options. If the client wishes to have discretion, the meeting doesn't have to occur at City Hall, because typically you are going to phone and connect in advance, and that might be one of the strategies that our folks need to employ and say, are you comfortable coming here, or do you want to meet somewhere else? And I think that's the trade-off in the process. But I think we really, at this point, need to be seeing that saving as a priority for every step of the way.
I know this.
Councilor Torson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I know this doesn't provide a lot of value, but I totally agree. We do need to start saving the $100,000 here or there when we can.
Councilor Monroe, and then Councilor Baker.
Sorry, I also just want to say thank you to Todd for actually taking our direction, because this is exactly what we asked you for in December. And also with that, yes, we'll save the $100,000, but we're also going to be able to give the direction and have the ability to do that. And if we're not happy with something, then we can deal with it directly, rather than having to go through a board and disciplinary acts and whatever in certain ways. So I am definitely keen for option 3 myself.
Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I had my little say a little while ago today, but when you're getting right down to the bottom here, I think there's 2 or 3 things. Number one, whether we need 3 people or 4 people. I don't hear sitting here saying, well, Director Kayford needs 21 truck drivers and 7 people to run the snowplow and those kind of things. I think that's the city manager's job to review and lay out the guidelines for Lloydminster Economic Development and tourism, I hope, and decide how many people we need to do that. I don't think it's our job every time we've got to hire somebody to do something if we need 3 or 4 people. We did get an organizational chart the other day, which was much appreciated. It tells us what's going on in the city. But I would expect if I talked to the city manager, he would tell me why those people are doing what they're doing. And that's his job, and I appreciate that, because that's his job. Today, to have economic development come inside the city, I don't see the difference. City managers have total control over Lloyd Economic Development. They can shut it down, they can move it, they can bring it in-house, they can dissolve it. We're saying, well, if Lloyd Economic Development goes broke, the city's not responsible. When you go out and tell the public the city's behind us, and we're not going to pay the bill if they run into financial problems, good luck politically. The city is responsible for Lloyd Economic Development, and because you decide to turn it into a corporation and run it from a building 6 blocks north of the City Hall, it really doesn't cut any ice with me. The Economic Development Board that exists today, I think it's great. I thought they were great 10 years ago, as long as council and administration had it set up properly, set their goals, what they wanted to see achieved, with the help of the directors, and then let them go do their work. I don't think that we should be having 2 separate buildings when we got 10,000 square feet of empty space, like I said earlier. I don't think that it's going to eliminate the city manager from having control over what economic development, whether it's in or out of the city. We're carrying a second corporation. The bookkeeping and the financial statements are done within the city financing. So what's the real benefit of this arm's length corporation? So what I'd rather see, and I don't know how to vote yet, Your Worship, because my option's not there, is to look at the whole budget and deal with some of these major numbers that we haven't even looked at yet, and decide what we're going to do with them, and then decide what we can afford, and then we'd say to our city manager, we think we can handle this much money. Tell us what you can do for economic development. But to vote on something today, we're going to hire 3 people, we're going to move them in, we're going to do this and that, and we don't even have the plan as a council. How can you do that? I find that not very efficient. So thank you.
Councilor Monroe.
Sorry, just another comment. And going with option 3, we're also not eliminating option 1. Option 1 could end up being down the road 6 months from now. We realize, well, we don't need 3 people. We do only need 1. So it's not completely Xing it, right? It's actually keeping it in the ballpark, but just at least from now, us giving the city manager and whoever have authority over what LEDC is doing. So to me, I'm still option 3. But it's not that option 1 isn't still a good idea. It could be, right? We don't know.
Councilor.
Yeah, I see the value in Councillor Baker's points. There's another element in all this as well, which I think as well as a human element. And I think to put people in limbo, to suspend them for now 4 or 5 months, I think is grossly unfair. These are people that have worked for us for a number of years, and I think we either make a decision or some way let people know where they want to go. I think that just comes out of common courtesy and respect for your employees. And that your employees are always your number one asset. And I think in fairness to them, and I understand the budget implications, but if we want employees to make the city of Lloydminster the place and choice of employment, we have to demonstrate that we treat them fairly and in a timely manner.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Buckingham.
Your Worship, thank you. I agree with you completely. Whatever decision this council decides to make, decision needs to be made. We can't carry this on. It's gone on too long. Put yourself in that position. You wouldn't like it. So, just to back that up, I agree with you.
Well, I think we've all very clearly stated that economic development is a very important step to our city with tourism. I appreciate Councilor Baker bringing that up. I think that they work hand in hand. Every time we look at things, money comes into our community in various formats. Tourism has certainly been a mainstay for many different businesses in the last year. We've put a lot of energy, the community has demonstrated, and we're on the map from that perspective. So that is part of the economic development that goes on in our city. We are in an economic slowdown, if I can use that terminology carefully. Certainly the oil and gas industry is not as robust as it has, and with some optimism, there will be some return. In the same token, it's going to be important that we position ourselves, that we can encourage people to grow their business that's here today, or to invest in a new business in our community, which is a strong part of economic development. So no matter what we decide, I want to make sure that we go away that economic development is a priority for this city and from this city council, and I believe that's there. With that said, I'll look to council for a recommendation. Councilor Monroe.
I move that council approve option number 3 of the City of Lloydminster Economic Development Strategy, which is the dissolution of the Lloydminster Economic Development Corporation as an arm's-length organization, and bring 3 LEDC team members in-house to provide economic development as team members of the City of Lloydminster.
A second. Councilor Dyche. Discussion on the recommendation. Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, Michael, I appreciate your comments. That's the most important thing we have as a people. And it's not about people. I guess if we want to hear the hard side, if we hadn't fiddled around for 6 months, maybe we wouldn't have been in this situation. But I'll leave it at that. And maybe that's our fault, because we didn't deal with it right away when it happened. And it happened right at election time, and I understand that too. So it was a double thing. If it's in order, I'd like to make an amendment to the motion. And I'd like to add one word.
All right.
Where it says economic development and tourism.
All right. It's a friendly amendment.
But it's not what the, sorry, Your Worship, but it's not what it's called currently. So, with the dissolution of LEDC.
Worship? You may.
Yeah, and I agree with Councillor Baker wholeheartedly. I was in the role at one time when Councillor Baker was mayor, and tourism is a function of economic development, so that goes without saying. I mean, if it's in there, it's fine, but it is a function of economic development.
As long as we don't forget about it. I don't want to mess your books up.
No, we have a friendly amendment, and the amendment is, I believe, Councilor Baker, correct me if wrong, it would be to provide economic development and tourism as team members of the city of Lloydminster.
Well, I thought you were saying it in the name, sorry.
No. So are you agreeable to the friendly amendment?
Yeah.
The seconder is agreeable to that friendly amendment? All right. So the amendment would basically be wording, adding, and tourism in the last line as team members of the city of Lloydminster. Good with that? Okay, we have a motion or a recommendation up for vote. Any further question? Okay. All in favor of the friendly amendment? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, City Clerk. Now we're back to any further discussion before I call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, we move to item 8.6, business services. Director.
Thank you, Your Worship.
I have 6 items on the agenda today for your consideration. First item, supplementary assessment of improvements for 2017. Administration is requesting council's approval to prepare a bylaw to authorize the preparation of supplementary assessment of improvements for the current year. As stated within the Lloydminster Charter, Section 261, council must annually pass a supplementary assessment bylaw authorizing the supplementary assessment to be prepared for the purpose of imposing a tax in the year. Each year in the fall, we receive a supplementary assessment roll from our contracted assessor, KCL Consulting, and our finance department processes a tax bill for the prorated portion of the calendar year. This includes properties that have been substantially completed during the year, which were not fully captured within our regular assessment roll. The charter outlines the process for supplementary assessment, which is similar to our annual assessments, which occur in January.
Thank you, Director. So I look, any questions? An annual item that rises on City Council's agenda from what I see. So with that, if there's no questions, I'll ask for recommendation from Council. Councilor Buckingham.
Council will instruct the city clerk to prepare a bylaw to authorize the preparation of supplementary assessments of improvements for the current year.
Can I have a first seconder? Councilor Thorson. Any further questions, discussion before I call for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Back to you, Director.
Thank you, Your Worship. Item 8.6.2, operating line of credit bylaw and authority. Administration is requesting council's approval to prepare a bylaw for an operating line of credit in the amount of $12.5 million. The Lloydminster Charter Operating Expenditures Section 199(1) states that this section applies to a borrowing made for the purpose of financing operating expenditures. The amount to be borrowed, together with the unpaid principal of the other borrowings made for the purpose of financing operating expenditures, must not exceed the amount that the city estimates will be raised in taxes in the year the borrowing is made. In December 2012, Council authorized the city clerk to prepare a bylaw for an operating line of credit in the amount of $12.5 million. The city has utilized the line of credit in 2014 to offset the now discounted program, the now discontinued discount program on the prepayment of property taxes with the cost of borrowing at $2,205.78. Historically, the city has not accessed these funds in 2013, 2015, or 2016. The line of credit will be used when necessary to facilitate any shortfalls in our operating projects.
Thank you, Director. Any questions, Council, on the Director? Councilor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just curious, is this the same amount that we borrow every year?
Yes, it is.
Just the same bylaw that we have, or the same bylaw we do every year for the same amount?
Correct. We prepare this on an annual basis.
Okay. But we never use it except for that one time?
Historically, that's the only time we've actually used it.
Okay.
I can appreciate that, Councilor Thorson, the question, because I think anytime you go into a line of credit, you kind of wonder if there's not enough money in the sock to cover your bills. But in this case, I think that if I did not realize the history to it, partly because of the discontinued prepayment allowance, the city did have a good cash flow, I believe is the best way to describe it, in previous. And then when we discontinued the council, the day discontinued it, money does not come in until June. So we have a long dry spell, as they say, in the income line sometimes for property taxes. So certainly it's important that we can manage our fiscal house and be in good condition.
Sorry, Your Worship, just to clarify, we do have a prepayment program to help manage the cash funds.
Okay.
Previously, it was a discounted program that was offered on taxes, and that was the issue that contributed to our cash flow shortage.
Okay.
And now with the current prepayment program, it helps kind of assist with that rate.
Thank you for that correction.
You're welcome.
Stand corrected. All right. Any other questions? I look to council for direction. Councilor Fagg.
The council will instruct the city clerk to prepare a bylaw to authorize the preparation of supplementary assessment of improvements for the current year.
No, next one, 8.6.2.
So the council instructed the city clerk to prepare a bylaw for an operating line of credit in the amount of $12,500,000.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Baker. Any questions or discussion? If not, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving to 8.6.3, Director.
Thank you, Your Worship. Administration is bringing forward a capital asset replacement policy for your consideration. Funding the city's capital asset replacement program becomes more and more challenging as capital grant funding from the provincial and federal government decreases. It is imperative that the City of Lloydminster formalize plans to set aside funding annually to ensure that the city can replace tangible capital assets when they reach the end of their useful lives. Administration has conducted research using comparable municipalities, utilizing different institutions, and is proposing the policy before you for capital asset replacement. Our current capital asset replacement strategy consists of a pay-as-you-go approach. This practice has resulted in issues with regard to how depreciation has been used. Any depreciation not allocated to current year capital projects was being used to fund general operations. One of the purposes of depreciation is to assist municipalities in determining how much money to set aside each year for capital asset replacements. By using depreciation to fund general operations, the city has been underfunding its capital asset replacement program. As this is not sustainable, if left unchanged, the city will not be able to replace all of its capital assets as they reach the end of their useful lives. The capital asset replacement policy will ensure that the city is allocating all of its depreciation to the betterment, rehabilitation, or replacement of tangible capital assets. Some depreciation will be used to fund current year capital asset program, and a portion will be set aside in the capital asset replacement reserve account to fund future capital asset replacements. Administration is recommending that a minimum of 2% of current depreciation be allocated to the capital asset replacement reserve annually, and the maximum percentage be determined annually by council through the budget process. Implementation of this policy will create one general capital asset replacement reserve. This will ensure that depreciation will be allocated proportionately to all projects when funds are transferred from the reserve to fund a portion of the capital asset replacement program. Administration would also be able to set up specific reserve accounts for special projects as identified by council. Council would then have the ability to determine the amounts added or removed from these funds annually. This policy will not apply to net new tangible capital assets. Funding these assets will come from grants, borrowing, etc. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any questions for the Director? Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, Lisa, for a great idea to get it back into the system with some clearer guidelines. I think what's really important, there's flexibility based on our economic times, and that's really a good feature. I just have a question on projects under $5 million. I understand we only build hopefully a wastewater treatment plant every 50 or 70 years, or whatever the life expectancy is. Is there some correlation to that number? Like, we have other buildings, like what would we do there that are more than $5 million? Like, how would we deal with that? Or did I miss something in here?
At that point, we'd be looking for additional sources of funding, especially where we're just establishing the reserve now. Yeah, so additional sources such as general surplus if we had it, grants to assist with that.
My other part was the surplus. At year end with the surplus, if we had $250,000 left over at year end, what's the policy now? At one point in time, council would approve that to be used to go into the equipment pool or whatever, for equipment or whatever. Where are we up on that now?
Currently, with respect to operating, the surplus is actually attributed to your accumulated surplus, you're going to see within the next couple of months, administration will be bringing forward a municipal sustainability reserve with respect to operating, which will allow the ability to put the surplus into a dedicated operating reserve.
Is that an MGA change or is that a
No, that's
charter
an
change?
administration recommendation we'll be bringing. It's an administration recommendation that we'll be
Okay.
bringing forward as a policy.
So that'll go back to operations?
Yes.
Okay.
So both of those funds will be new then, first time for city
Correct.
council? Okay. I just echo, Councilor Baker's comments. I mean, I think if you're going to develop a reserve, it can't be left to chance. You need to plan for it, and I think this sets up a plan to do it.
Director, basically anything the city purchases over $1,000 is a capital asset, is it?
That's correct.
Okay, so basically we're going to pool everything from buildings to vehicles to equipment to machinery, I guess you could say, in that fund for depreciation value?
To clarify, we do have an equipment pool reserve currently, which we will leave in place.
Okay.
And there are, I know next year will be foregone calculation in addition to the depreciation that we do to recuperate that cost internally.
Okay.
So the depreciation from the vehicles will still be going to that equipment pool reserve. However, all other assets depreciation will be going into the capital asset replacement.
Okay, so that would be basically buildings, streets, water and sewer, landfill, that kind of stuff. Okay, but any other than equipment, like you say, other than, is there a kind of a cut there between a capital piece of machinery, I'll call it equipment, versus capital? Okay.
So,
Sounds good.
so will we get an update on the equipment reserve? Because I guess I'm looking at the amortization. What we're doing in depreciation is basically driving it through and replacing through depreciation. So I'm wondering how much is getting left behind. And so if we could get an update on that, that'd be great.
Definitely. And basically, you'll see coming forward with our 2016 audited financial statements, you'll see that reserve, all of our reserve balances actually, that transfer into and from.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councilor Torres.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I just had a quick clarifying question, and that's just, so the 2% figure is just kind of a floor we've set up. So let's say as a whole, the city did $10 million in depreciation. We would take a minimum 2% of that number and take real cash and put it in a separate account that we cannot touch so that we can fund new, or fund replacement, not new.
Future replacement. Yes, that's correct.
Any other questions for the director? I look to council for a recommendation.
Yeah, I recommend that council approve the capital asset replacement policy.
Seconder? Councilor Diachak? Any further questions? Call for the question, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving to 8.6.4. Director?
Thank you, Worship. Presenting the new Building Canada Fund Provincial Territorial Infrastructure Component Clean Water Wastewater Fund. We're asking that council approve the Provincial Territorial Infrastructure Component Clean Water Wastewater Fund application through the new Building Canada Fund. Council resolution is required for the grant application to meet the mechanical wastewater treatment facility. Council agreement is required to meet legislative standards, the terms and conditions for the relevant program, to conduct an open tendering process, to manage the construction of the project, to fund the municipal share of the construction cost, to fund the ongoing operation and maintenance costs, and to follow any mitigation measures as required by the Canadian Environmental Assessment Act and the Environmental Assessment Act, Saskatchewan. The city had applied for this grant and received council approval for the first funding intake in January 2015. The city will be applying for the same project submission as the first intake with minor application additions and alterations. The deadline for applying for to apply for funding is January 23rd, 2017. Administration is currently working on the application process, and council resolution is a requirement of this process. The estimated budget for the project is $80 million. Federal and provincial government financial assistance are essential for this project. Administration is requesting that council approve the submission of the grant application to New Builds Canada Provincial Territorial Infrastructure Component Clean Water Wastewater Fund Program.
Thank you, Director. Questions from council? Council Baker.
I love this one. If we can get that kind of grant and it's approved, Lisa, we'll make you the star forever.
Oh, it'll be our party.
Pardon me?
It will be our party for sure.
The city's portion of the funding, it's a ways away, we'll find it, I understand that. But I'm sure you've looked into that portion of the 25 million, if it's our share, or whatever it is. How you deal with that? Would you like to share with us? Or did I miss something again?
No.
I'll actually go for it. City Manager?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, thanks, Councilor Baker. They keep changing the funding model, first of all. So in the previous intake, it was a 50% federal intake and then shared between, of course, in Lloydminster, Alberta, Saskatchewan municipalities. Apparently, from what Deputy CEO Morrison and I have heard late last week, that it's going back to a third, but they haven't clarified exactly yet. However, what they are saying is that our submission has to be in by January 23rd. We went to put the submission in already because we had in the past. However, they said we need council approval even to submit this. So that's why we need you to go ahead today. It's just to,
Fair enough.
This is just to submit it. Yeah, absolutely. Is that, hopefully that answers your
Oh,
question.
yeah.
Okay.
Get it in.
That's exactly the direction they received from the mayor, was let's get this in and get it done. So that's why it's before us, Councilor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is just pretty simply, maybe we don't know the answer to this, but did we get any feedback as to whether there was anything wrong with our initial application, or was it just simply we didn't make the cut? Just so that we're not making, let's say, the same mistake twice if it is.
Yeah, actually, the feedback we received is simply we didn't make the cut in the first round. Even after several discussions at the deputy minister level, federally and provincially, yeah, we weren't on the list. I do believe in this round, with the connections from bureaucratic level, even his worship at the political level, I do believe it will be a different result this time. Confidence. So.
I have my fingers crossed too, Councilor. I had an opportunity to speak to the federal minister's office of infrastructure before Christmas. I made it extremely clear that the #1 priority and project that the city of Lloydminster needs to move forward with infrastructure with the wastewater treatment plant. We'll be meeting with the provincial ministers in the near future and our MLAs and helping them carry that message forward as well. And we'll be carrying that message to our respective MPs to carry that message. This is where, as the city manager indicated, we'll be working through the administration and bureaucracy of the federal and provincial governments, as well as working at the elected level to ensure that they understand our needs and explain the situation very clearly, because this is meeting federal and provincial regulatory requirements while we're in this position. So that will be the message we'll be all carrying forward at SUMA. And any other opportunity we get to meet with the elected representatives, this will be an ongoing discussion for some time. And ensuring that, and we will be following up both at my desk and I'm sure the city manager's desk to make sure that application is reviewed as quick as possible. And all details are provided to ensure that you don't come back and say, oh, you missed something. We'll be walking this as closely as we can through the process and hopefully get the results that we're looking for. Councilor Buckingham.
I'd like to make a motion that council approve the submission of the grant application to New Builds Canada Provincial Territorial Infrastructure Component / Clean Water Wastewater Fund Program.
Seconded by Councilor Baker. Sorry, Councilor Buckingham, if you can continue to read through, we need to that whole motion, I'm afraid.
Sorry. And the council declines the submission of a grant application.
Oh, no.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, just continue on with number 1 where you're at.
Could Councilor Baker straighten him out over there?
So basically, you just
Right.
need to, yeah.
The council approves the submission of a grant application to the New Builds Canada Provincial Territorial Infrastructure Component Clean Water Wastewater Fund Program, and the council agrees to meet legislative standards to meet the terms and conditions for the relevant program, to conduct an open tendering process, to manage the construction of the project, to fund the municipal share of the construction cost, to fund ongoing operation and maintenance costs, and to allow any mitigation measures as required by the Canadian Environmental Assessment Act and the Environmental Assessment Act of Saskatchewan.
Thank you. Let's you'll second that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving back to you, Director, to 8.6.5.
Thank you, Your Worship. We're presenting a lease agreement for your consideration. The Lloydminster Border Blades Speed Skating Club would like to donate a building located northwest of the Service Sports Center valued at approximately $83,000. In return, the City of Lloydminster will lease the building back to the club to use as a skate change and equipment storage shed. The Lloydminster Border Blades Skating Club would like to donate this building located on Lot 28, Block 26, Plan 224586 to the City of Lloydminster. Multiple community partners have donated approximately $16,000 to help pay for the building. The City of Lloydminster will lease the building back to the Lloydminster Border Blades Speed Skating Club for the purpose of the skate change area, equipment storage, and event meet headquarters. The lease would carry a term of 10 years with the option of 3 additional 5-year lease extensions at the existing rate. The building would be utilized by the general public as a skate change area with exclusive rights to the speed skating club during their book times on the oval. The city will have the ability to rent the room to other community groups when this building is not in use by the Border Blades. The building will also be utilized by Lloydminster Kidsport for the use of equipment storage. The agreement will provide revenue as stated below. January 1st, 2017 to December 31st, 2027, $1 per annum. January 1st, 2028 to December 31st, 2043, $1 per annum.
Thank you, Director. Any questions for the Director?
Just a quick question, and perhaps Director Stein can answer this, but its location, I'm just trying to visualize where it's located, and will it in any way inhibit expansion of our service recreation center facilities at all?
No, it's located right beside speed skating pool. In the past, they had a couple of sea cans there where they had put some heat in. They were utilizing that. So they approached us to put up this building and to have it open to the general public. They did all the legwork to, funding for the building, build it, and now they're turning it over to this employee. So outside of any expansion area, the service sports center directly adjacent to the speed skating pool.
Just to follow up, I guess, operating costs relative to power, maintenance, do we anticipate that at all?
I don't have those numbers. That's something we can definitely, it should be very minimal.
Any other questions, Councilor Baker?
Thank you, Richard. I never had a chance to go down and look. This is down at the Oval. Is that mobile? Will it be a mobile building?
No, they built it in place.
Okay. I guess the question is sewer and water.
There's no sewer.
They use the service sports center for that. Okay, because it's a big ticket item.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Comments? Concerns? If not, I'll look to council for a recommendation. Councilor Fenn?
The council approved the lease agreement between the City of Lloydminster and the Lloydminster Border Blades Speeding Club for a skate change area. Equipment storage and event meet headquarters located next to the Service Sports Center as presented, and that the mayor and the city clerk be authorized to sign this agreement.
Seconded to that is Councilor Dychak. Any further questions? I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Back to you, Director. 8.6.6.
Thank you, Your Worship. Item for discussion is Nitro Heavy Hauling Limited write-off. Administration is requesting council's approval to write off the outstanding accounts receivable, account balance, and property tax account balances that are uncollectible due to the insolvency of Nitro Heavy Hauling Limited. Nitro Heavy Hauling Limited took over the lease of a city-owned property situated at 6006 59 Avenue on July 24th, 2006. They were responsible for monthly lease payments and the property taxes for this parcel of land. On November 10th, 2015, Nitro Heavy Hauling Limited was placed into receivership by order of the Alberta Court of Queen's Bench, and BDO Canada Limited was appointed as the receiver. Administration submitted a proof of claim form on January 8th, 2016 in respects to the city's unsecured claim for the outstanding lease payments and property tax payments. The city contacted BDO in late December 2016 and again in early January 2017 and were informed that the file has been closed and the funds were deemed in trust by BDO Canada Limited. The city additionally contacted Canada Revenue Agency and was informed by the CRA that they did receive some funds, but they were still owed substantial funds and were not likely to require, that hours were likely required to be wrote off. There were no funds remaining to be released to the city of Lloydminster. There is an outstanding accounts receivable balance of $10,354.40 in lease payments as per the attached ARH receivables detail report. There is also an additional outstanding balance of $15,646.14 owed for 2015 and 2016 property taxes as per the attached property tax transaction detail. We are requesting permission to write off the total of $26,054 as uncollectible.
Thank you, Director. Any questions for the Director?
Your Worship, do we have a policy or bylaw on write-offs? Because I'm sure these folks aren't the only ones that are
Correct.
owing us money. And so, and you have to come back every time, or is this outside of the bylaw, so we have to come for it?
This one is typically a standalone item.
Okay.
Basically, we will be bringing forward recommendations for write-offs in a collective manner. We typically do two. We'll do one for utilities specifically, and we also do one specific to our AR. We're bringing this forward as a standalone due to the nature of the property tax item. And just to provide some clarification, the city-owned property is tax exempt. However, when we lease it to a company, that's when we have the opportunity through the agreement to bill the property taxes, and we'd like the opportunity to have these removed off the receivable.
Any other questions for the Director?
I'll make the motion if no one's.
Certainly.
Okay. Council approve the write-off of the outstanding accounts receivable and property tax balances due to the insolvency of Nitro Heavy Hauling Limited.
Seconder, Councilor Fagan. Any further questions, discussion? I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving to 8.7, bylaws. So we have the first reading of bylaw 1-2017, supplementary tree assessment. I'll look to council for someone to. This is in pertinent discussion to our earlier conversation of the recommendation from council. Councilor Dyche.
Move that bylaw 1-2017 supplementary assessment be given first reading.
Seconded. Councilor Monroe. Any questions, discussion? I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 8.7.2, bylaw 2-2017, the operating line of credit. Up to council for recommendation. Councilor Rowe.
That bylaw 2-2017, operating line of credit, be given first reading.
And seconded. Councilor Thorson. Any questions or comments? I'll call for the question. I will call. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 8.7.3 is, I'll look to you, City Clerk. This is an item I believe is tabled, and you can give us some direction.
Thank you, Your Worship. This item is tabled at our previous council meeting, and in order to ensure that it's not lost in the shuffle, we'll be bringing it forward. I understand that we may be lifting it from the table today, but before we can discuss the item, it has to be lifted from the table. So we'll look to the council for that direction.
Councilor Baker.
Yes, Your Worship. I'd like to move that council approve bylaw 31, 2016, which was tabled during the December 12, 2016 regular council meeting, be lifted from the table so the matter can be discussed.
Seconder. Councilor Dychak. Any questions before? Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Your Worship. As you know, I have spoke against this.
Well, actually, it's a table. All we're doing is to vote it to bring it
sorry.
back. If we may. Sorry.
Okay.
Point of order. Okay, so actually, I shouldn't have called for discussion. It's simply we go to the vote. All in favor to lift it? Opposed? Carried. Now it's back on the table. Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Your Worship. As you know, I've spoke against zoning, rezoning, when possibly it might affect the people who live in that existing zoning area, and or it may present other issues that we discussed. Over a period of 2 months, I've reached out to the owner in my own way, saying, I wish we could get this solved and get the right information, and hopefully make a decision that would help everyone. Well, I do want to say that on January 11th, we did receive the information that I feel was critical to these kind of decisions, and that was the delivery of a site plan, a building elevations, and floor plans for this project. And I think, and I'm not sure if they're distributed to all of council, but I did talk to Director Cavert again, and what I thought was going to happen at our last meeting, that we were going to receive them earlier, but in any case, I took those drawings to the job site and compared them to what was going on there, and I must say that the type of building that has been proposed, and this really helps if we have all the information, fits right in with the subdivision. It's really a duplex with 2 finished basements. Well, we were told it was row housing, and I'm going to be a little tough on this one, because I asked you to give us all the information so we can make those decisions and hopefully not hold anybody up unnecessarily. And were those documents distributed to everybody?
They were, Councillor, they were,
Okay.
we didn't make the actual council package, but they were sent to all councillors on.
Okay.
I'm looking at it right here on, I believe you received it on the 12th, but just before noon.
Okay. So I would assume from our planning department that conditions for landscaping, et cetera, and finishing would apply as the builder had prescribed when the lot was sold. So that's looked after. And with these bi-level, this is really, it looks like a bi-level duplex, just like the rest of them, with 2 lower areas finished. So with that, I'm going to speak in favor of the motion when you call for the vote.
All right. Any other questions, concerns, or comments? I will echo what Councilor Baker said, that I think the complete package gave us a much clearer idea. The allotment for parking was a concern in the area for congestion. It made an allowance for 8 parking spots in the property. I think that the design folks with the builder have done a good job of making that fit into the community and into that area that they're proposing. And as Councilor Baker said, we didn't change the whole dynamics completely in the neighborhood by putting in row housing versus a fourplex with the 2 basement suites. I believe they've addressed it very well. And Director Cavert on this, Councilor Baker kind of alluded to it. They met, all the conditions would be met to make sure that the exterior and landscaping requirements meet all the proper zoning and that kind of stuff.
The development will comply. It'll look very much similar to what's there. And the landscape requirement in the R3 zone is actually more stringent than it is in R2, so the landscaping level will be higher on this property than it is on the others.
Excellent, thank you. So I agree with, and to Councilor Baker, I think it's very important, the message we ask of administration to ensure, we're working with the builder, the developer, that they provide us as much information as quick as they can to ensure that we can make a good decision as council, because I believe that's very important when we do change that R2 to R3 in this case, and we don't want to set a precedence that people just say, oh, they're going to automatically do that. We need to look at each individual case and ensure that we're bringing good value to the other stakeholders, namely the taxpayers and residents of the neighborhoods, and ensure that we are consistent as city council when we're making adjustments to plans. But I think we're there. Councilor Dychak?
I'd just like to echo Councilor Baker's comments as well, and I think perhaps this is a lesson for all of us going forward, so that one, I don't think I'd want the city to be perceived as someone as a barrier for development in the city. It should be easy to do business in the city of Lloydminster, and I think certainly having all the information that from this experience would tell me that the next one should be a lot smoother and ensure that when people come to do business in the city, it becomes pretty simple. You know what's expected, here's the information, and we have the opportunity, certainly as council, to improve it or deny it as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other questions, comments? If not, I'll look to council for a recommendation. We had the first recommendation, there's two additional recommendations because it's a bylaw for second and third readings, so I'll look to council for direction. Councilor Dychak?
Bylaw 31-2016 begin second reading.
Seconder? Councilor Monroe? Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next recommendation? Councilor Baker? I'll ask you to read the last one.
I don't even know where it is.
Last page, just above item number 9. Third reading.
Second reading?
No, third reading.
Third reading, the bylaw 31-2 be given third and final. Should have remembered that.
Seconder, Councilor Buckingham. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, moving to item number 9, consent agenda. We have a couple items on the consent agenda, monthly financial position, operation, and as well as the debt repayment schedule. I'm up to council for direction. Recommendation.
I move that council approve items on the consent agenda as presented.
Seconder. Councilor Dychak. Any questions or comments? No further questions. I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And item 10, any business arising from the consent agenda? Nothing, I believe, brought forward. Moving to item 11, correspondence and information. City Clerk.
No correspondence.
All right. Then okay. Number 12 is the mayor and council reports. It's been a very beautiful Christmas and New Year. I hope that everyone had an enjoyable time to spend time with their family as I did. And I don't have a whole lot to report. My calendar's starting to fill in very comfortably for January. There will be lots of activities in the city. Had a great opportunity Saturday night to enjoy the Malonka celebration put on by the Ukrainian community in our city, and dancers. They did an excellent program, and it's great to see. I think the culture in our city is very vibrant, and that's an excellent opportunity to enjoy it. So if you didn't get it this year, please get out next year. And there'll be other items on the agenda going forward. There's a lot of activities in our city on a daily basis. The one I'll mention is this coming Wednesday night at the Lloyd Cultural Center, the gala that is being hosted to talk about Canada, certainly featuring immigration to our country, and for many of us, we come from immigrant families. So it's an opportunity to revisit your roots, maybe a little bit, or history in your family. So I'd encourage you to attend that. But other than that, I don't have a whole lot from the mayor's perspective. Is there anything from council? Any councilors have any particular items?
Your Worship, I guess just a question, because I know that we had some meetings, and I know Jonathan met with on Friday morning, right? I mean, would those be, those meetings that we have around, the committees that we sit on, this would be the place to report? Or is there an expectation report? I mean, sometimes it's just, we meet, we talk and say hello, we get to know each other, and really, that's, I'm not sure that's just wasting time coming back and saying we met and shook hands. But I mean, I just, maybe going forward, that's something we want to consider since we have meetings.
Certainly, city manager.
Would you like me to respond?
Certainly.
Yeah, usually, I mean, and certainly as a new council and you're with your newer committees that the appointments just happened. What will happen in the future, usually there's minutes that come from most of those, and then they would get forwarded into the mayor's office through Wendy, and then the minutes would be distributed to council, and then questions could come forward based on those minutes. Unless there was something, you know, outside of the regular norm that you wanted to report on, obviously that could be discussed in that area as well too, so.
All right, to ask that question, because we'll all be experiencing many more meetings now, sitting on various boards as they commence for the new year. All right, I'm going to move to item number 13. Okay, and look to the city manager for other matters.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. It is my pleasure today to, as you know, Lloydminster became the size of a city to have an inspector a couple of years ago. We were lucky enough to have Inspector Suki manage with us for a couple of years before he was transferred off to the British Columbia detachment. And I'm happy to say that we have a new inspector that was hired, vetted through his worship, and myself and Director Stang. As well. So I'd like to everyone give a warm welcome to Inspector Neil Pearson, who's joining us.
Inspector, if you'd like to join us for a comment or two.
Sure. Just, it was okay. Just really happy to be back here. I don't know if you were aware, but I was a constable here in 1995. Stationed for a year, so it's nice to be back in the border city. Really impressed with the detachment. Really impressed with the members, the employees that work there. Great support from mayor and council, and you can see it's a great place to work. And so my plan in the future is just to kind of tweak a few things and move ahead. But I'm really enjoying it so far. It's excellent. Get some. I know my way around the city already. It's kind of funny. You remember when I was driving. There's a few houses I drove by. I was there before. I feel that. I noticed a few of the bars are the same too, and I noticed a few names pop up. So I remember that too. So, but it's really good to be back here, and I'm really grateful that I was selected to come here, and I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Inspector. We're looking forward to working with you for as many years as we can keep you, and we really like to welcome you back to the city, because it's always nice. Many people that move sometimes don't get the opportunity twice to come back where they have worked and lived, and it's glad that you accepted the offer that we extended, and we're excited to have you, and we're looking forward to some great things with your organization.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's give another round. I look for inquiries from the media. Taylor O'Donnell. Oh, sorry. Like for a second. Councilor Baker, sorry.
Well, there were just a couple of things I had, Your Worship, for me, that have come up in the last while, a very short while. And one was the elimination of health regions within our province of Saskatchewan. And of course, you know, Prairie North that looks after the city of Lloydminster and portions of Alberta. As usual, I'm not sure how we're going to address the Alberta side under the charter, but in any case, for someone who's been around for a while, it's been an issue in the past, these health region problems. And now as late as today, the rumors are out there, as you well said, that there's a move to get rid of school divisions. And how is that going to affect us? So I think it's, we know in the health system, there's many issues there that are still outstanding. And as late as 2 weeks ago, on behalf of His Worship, I attended a concerned citizens, senior citizens meeting, and ambulance issues that were there in 2009 regarding funding, and there will be a report coming through later. I've met with his worship to discuss the meeting, and we're still being shortchanged on the ambulance side big time from 2009. And it's at the tune of a lot of money per year, and I'll just leave it at that. So I think as a city council, we have to work with whoever the senior citizens, the concerned citizens, the Lloydminster Health Advisory Committee, and make sure that where we're going, we have our say. However, it's never easy with the border issues, so I just want the public to know that hopefully as a council, we can help facilitate whatever is the best for our cities.
Absolutely, I think there'll be some more information coming forward very shortly on
Yeah.
the healthcare, the school board, we kind of addressed a little bit. And it is issues that are directly related to us, but indirectly, because as municipal government, we have a responsibility to ensure the governance and the city. But these two items touch every one of our citizens directly or indirectly. And I think it's very important that we lend whatever hand and help we can to our local school boards, to our and express on behalf of our citizens through our elected representatives at the provincial level, because both of these items are a provincial regulatory item. But again, as you mentioned, Councillor Baker, the bi-provincial nature of our city leaves us added responsibility as city council to speak and ensure that. So I think we'll be discussing, getting some more information out to council about the very issue you rose, the school board, and that kind of stuff, because these are all very active issues currently, and I'll say they're fluid issues, because now the health, we know where the direction's going, but what is the exact direction? Whereas the school boards have been presented a number of options, and that's being discussed and being examined by another committee. So again, it's going to be very imperative, and I'll add to that, even the Alberta government has now proposed boundary changes or reviewing those. So there's a meeting on next Monday night, I believe it is, in Wainwright to discuss, is the closest meeting to attend for boundary issues that affect our constituency at a provincial level. So that affects us on representation. The last thing we want to see is a dividing of a constituency right down 16 Highway or 44th Street, where Ray Nelson Drive saying one side was one constituency and another was another, because we know that does happen in the cities, the larger cities. So there's many avenues that we need to be aware of and be on top of, and I think that we'll be discussing those very shortly.
Your Worship, I just echo both what you said, and I think part of the problem in terms of even speaking to democracy is that we may be the only people speaking on behalf of the city at this point outside of our MLAs, who obviously have their own affiliations, but simply from a citizen perspective that represent both Alberta and Saskatchewan, if school boards have appointed boards, there's no elected body or individual that can act and speak on behalf. So my concern, I think, is as if some of these events and directions actually prevail, there will be a greater responsibility falling upon the city to advocate on behalf of more than just the municipal elements of the city.
Absolutely. Any other discussions then on the other matters this time? If not, my apologies, Taylor O'Donnell. I'll look to you in media from that perspective.
Thank you, Your Worship. Today we have media requests for Mayor Albers, Councillor Baker, and Councillor Dijkstra.
Thank you very much. That would lead us to a motion for recess of council. Councillor Dijkstra?
Move for an inside recess.
For an inside recess. And then
Recess.
Seconder, right? Do that? I do need a second. Councillor Craigman, thank you. All in favor of the inside recess? Opposed? Carried. Recess. The adjournment.